Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. This is our fifth and final segment of the night, talking about the Stanley Cup Final, Game 6 preview. And as we're looking at it, this is one of the first, I think this is the first game since Game 3 that the Edmonton Oilers are favorited in this series. This is only the second game in the entire series that the Oilers have been favorited according to Vegas. The question is, can they do this? Are they about to make this comeback? And what does that look like? First off, Connor McDavid. I think this is the biggest name. This is the one that we got to talk about here. McDavid needs to break that Gretzky record if they want to win this. He has 4 points in the last 2 games played. That is why they won those 2 games compared to the games prior. They win when Connor McDavid goes off, and he needs to go off for them to win. They are very much mutually exclusive, and what is the number going to be at is what I'm curious. He's at 42 right now. For them to win, is he going to need to get to 50 points in a playoff series? That would be insane. 50 points in a playoff run is something that I never thought that I would be seeing. It's not just the points. It's not just the assist. He's scoring. Also, he has 3 goals in the last 2 games. He's putting the team on his back and really doing everything he can. I compared him to 2016 LeBron in that first segment, and I think that is a very fair comparison. Connor McDavid has the potential to be the best player of all time. Of course, he will never have the stats because he didn't play in the era that Wayne Gretzky did. If you look at the goaltending in 1980s, you would understand what I'm talking about. But for this Edmonton Oilers team, can they do this? They need to win this game to force that Game 7, of course. So what does that look like? How do they beat the Florida Panthers? Well, how they were winning was through the neutral zone. How they were winning was through great special teams. This is kind of what they are. They are just a fantastic special teams team with only one power play goal given up in the last 46 opportunities. They also scored 2 power play goals last night in that Game 5 win. For the Edmonton Oilers, they are just a fantastic team when, the pressure is on, especially. They were able to come back on the Dallas Stars a little bit. They were able to come back on the Vancouver Canucks, who took the first 2 games in that series, if I'm not mistaken, in that second round. The Edmonton Oilers like coming back, and they could make the biggest comeback of our lives. The Oilers won 16 in a row this year. I know it was against some lesser opponents, but it happened, and absolutely. This is what I was saying in my Monday show. The Oilers won 16 in a row, 8 in a row, and 5 in a row, following 3 losses in a row this regular season. They don't lose 3 games in a row often, but when they do, they bounce back in big ways. Now, granted, this would be the biggest way possible, but they did win 16 in a row. They are a streaky team. This is kind of what they have been in recent memory, especially in this year under Chris Knobloch. This Edmonton Oilers team looks different. It looks different than what I saw in the first 3 games. This team has a little confidence to them, and it reminds me of what I was watching in that LA Kings series in the first round. I think that they kind of went away from what they were doing in the Kings series, and I think that kind of went against them they kind of just got through the Canucks and just got through the Dallas Stars. Didn't impress too much in those series. However, now playing in the Stanley Cup Final, these last 2 games have been nothing short of impressive. Winning 5-3 and 8-1 against a Florida Panthers team that doesn't give up goals. In the first 2 games in this series, we were talking about how they gave up 1 goal in the first 2 games. Yeah, that makes sense because of their defense. But now they've given up 13 in the last 2, completely flipping the series on its head. And another thing we got to talk about, Connor McDavid will win the Conn Smythe, let alone the result in a Game 6. And if it goes to Game 7, for sure, Connor McDavid has locked up this Conn Smythe. He's minus 175 in the Vegas betting odds to win a Conn Smythe this year. This is, you can't put it into words how impressive this postseason run and, this regular season for Connor McDavid was. He didn't play a lot of games this regular season. He played like 70-something games, but didn't play a full season, had 100 assists. We're still waiting on the Hart Memorial Trophy to be announced. Who's going to win it? It's between him, McKinnon, and Kucherov. Kucherov did lead the league in points and had 100 assists, but McDavid had 100 assists in less games played. McDavid has been the best player in the world the last 7 years, truly, and we're finally seeing it come to fruition. And we haven't seen him play on the Stanley Cup Final stage, and in those first 3 games, it was really, is this what he looks like in a Stanley Cup Final? Because this is bad. This isn't a Connor McDavid that we expect. Now, this is a Connor McDavid that is striking fear into the Panthers. And I think that's another thing. Connor McDavid to the Panthers, when the Avalanche played the Oilers in the Western Conference Final in 2022, Cale Makar felt very confident against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and Cale Makar was playing at an exceptional level. Now, when we're coming into this series, it needed to be Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad, and Alexander Barkov to kind of play at that level to beat these superstars. They did it in the first 3 games, but now they're not. And I'm kind of curious to know if Alexander Barkov is playing on an injury, because although he has been looking good offensively, he hasn't been playing that defensive style of hockey that we expect out of him in these last couple of games. I think he's a -4 in the last 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. He's not playing his best hockey. However, the Edmonton Oilers just are playing just a different level above what I've ever seen anybody play. Maybe a Tampa Bay Lightning in 2020 or 2021 is kind of similar, but for the Edmonton Oilers, it is just the Connor McDavid show, and I want to talk about Leon Draisaitl. I really do want to talk about Leon Draisaitl, but he's not been as impressive. He just hasn't as Connor McDavid. We always talk about how they have just the lethal 1-2 punch. Well, it's really just a straight uppercut right to the chin from Connor McDavid in this playoff series. It's also Evan Bouchard, who I talked about in the first segment, having the most assists by an NHL or by a defenseman in an NHL playoff run of all time, passing Paul Coffey's record that he set in the 85 Stanley Cup Final, if I'm not mistaken. That's also the Stanley Cup run that Wayne Gretzky set his record for points, if I'm not mistaken. I think that they happened in the same postseason, whether it's 83 or 85. I'm pretty confident in saying that it happened in one of those. It makes sense. You have to have kind of another player on the team having a lot of points if you have 42 from one player. I mean, let's talk about this for a second. 42 points in 20-something games? What are we doing here? This is insane. And truly, I thought Sergei Bobrovsky had the Conn Smythe locked up after that Game 3. And then Connor McDavid doing what he's doing is insane. Watching Panthers give up chasing breakaways, etc. Looked like what the Oilers do at times. Everything has switched. Yeah, and talking about that Connor Brown goal. That is a lazy pass. This is the first goal of that Game 5. That's a lazy pass D to D on a power play that you're just punished for. You're giving up Connor Brown just wide open. You also have McDavid has gotten way too much space in these last couple of games. You also have Zach Hyman getting to the net, which he wasn't doing in the first 3 games that they have to eliminate. It's all around just a defensive switch from what we saw in those first 3 games against the Florida Panthers against the Oilers for the Florida Panthers, and they need to get back to that sound defensive, Bobrovsky making fantastic saves, shutting it down kind of in the D zone, and playing that forechecking style that they want to play. The Oilers have made them uncomfortable and have changed the game completely by doing so. So for this Game 6, I'm not going to bet against the Oilers again. I've bet against the Oilers the last 2 games. They proved me completely wrong. I'm going to go with the Oilers in this Game 6, forcing a Game 7. I'm not saying that they'll win the series yet. I'm not confident on that still. But in Alberta, in Rogers Place, that looks like a fantastic environment, I think that the Edmonton Oilers can get this done and take it to a Game 7. So I'm going to go with the Oilers 6-2. And I think Connor McDavid has 4 points again. And I think it's going to have to happen like that. I can't wait for Friday when that game does happen. I'm excited to talk about that with you guys. But that'll wrap it up for this Wednesday GSMC Hockey Podcast. I will be back on Friday for my next edition of the Hockey Podcast. I'm also here tomorrow for the GSMC Golf Podcast at the same time as well. Thank you all for your support. Every bit of it is very much appreciated. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like or subscribe on YouTube or follow us or download it on whatever you are listening to the show on, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. Thank you all for your support. Once again, don't forget to follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at GSMC Podcast Network as well. Thank you all one more final time, and have a fantastic and wonderful evening.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.